Hi, my name is Michelle Thompson, and this is Jenna. We are here in this series we're calling Life with Littles Conversations, and we're so excited to be with you for this second video. Our guest today is Dawna DeSilva. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Dawna has been at Bethel Church for 25 years, and she was instrumental in starting the Transformation Center, launching the Sozo ministry, and the tools that thousands of churches are using around the world to see amazing breakthrough and healing transform people's lives.
And all of that with littles.
Yes!
That's why we need you here.
She's a hero!
It's so true. It's so true. Seeing a mom do it, like being an international bestseller, traveling around the world, like, come on, give us your hindsight wisdom so we can benefit from it.
Absolutely. Yes. Most of it will be hindsight.
Yeah. That's what we're looking for. Okay, that actually leads us perfectly into the first question is, what do you wish that you know now that you wish you known in our season? So like, if you could give yourself advice retroactively, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, I think it was funny, we were talking right before we started. I said if there was one thing that I would have held on to is all the advice from the gray-haired women that would tell me, you know, with my struggling with my children, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. And I'd be like, but you don't have this kid, you don't know what it's like. And you know, my kids are now 30 and 33, and so it's like, you know what? It was okay.
Yeah.
And I think if I could have held on to that truth and not talked myself into, you know, catastrophe or something bad's going to happen when I would watch my kids in response, and one of them had learning problems, and I think I would love to be able to just impart peace to the hearts of the moms out there that it's going to be okay. You know, your kids are going to fall down and they're going to get up, and your kids are going to get straight A's and maybe flunk a test or two. It's going to be okay. I think that would have been the best. If I could go back, we would have had more peace in our home.
You mentioned that your son has a learning disability, and how I feel like that almost adds even more weight to the idea of that you wish you had listened to that it's going to be okay, because when there are real life problems, you know, beyond the like scraped knees and stuff, when there's actually things like evidence in your life that you feel like is contrary to the peace, the idea of like wishing you held on to that more. Tell us something, like you were telling us about how your son, where he's at now, and what you saw, and if you could see in the future where he's at and how well he's doing.
Yeah, I wouldn't have struggled through years of tears with him and me, trying to get him to be able to read. He had, not only did he have dyslexia, but he had something that kept him from keeping the words on the page static. And so the words, like elephant wouldn't just be jumbled, but it would be here, here, and here. And he came home from first grade one time saying, I'm tired of being the dumb kid in class. And, you know, my mommy heart is just like, oh my gosh. And one of the things that we did growing up is that we did right. You know, there's a lot we didn't do right, but one of the things we did do right is, you know how you joke about, oh, that's just stupid? We would never let Corey tell his brother, oh, that's just stupid, because stupid was what he felt. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And so we used other words like, oh, did you think that through or whatever? And my older boy is short as a man. And so his younger brother who outgrew him could never say, oh, you're short. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like, well, you obviously can look that you're shorter than everyone, but it's like, we're not going to reiterate that. And I took the boys both aside separately at different times and said, okay, your brother struggles with this, so we're not going to mention that. We're going to use different words because we're not going to hit the character of the child. So I think we fought hard for that one with Timmy, and one of the things that we've learned through brain science, you know, is that your belief system tells you what you can and cannot do. And so when Timmy came home from school, I'm tired of being the dumb kid in class, it shuts down your ability to learn. Because the brain's like, oh, we're going to have to go this way or that way. And so we never let him believe he was stupid. So we're like, Timmy, you're not stupid. You see different than everyone. He does. He just sees in this grand way. But we didn't know what he could and couldn't do because it's in his brain. So we just watched what came our way. And, of course, none of the stuff that came our way was covered by insurance, right? And so the first thing we got is colored glasses, which I think his were purple. And it stopped the movement on the page. And the first time he put his little glasses on, he's like, my foot fits on the whole stair. And I'm like, so he had depth perception issues as well. Well, he had the heart of an athlete but couldn't make a basket. because he was under the basket shooting, and everyone would be like, Timmy, you got to scoot back. And he's like, I'm right here. And so he started making baskets. And so we just paid attention to what God was doing. You know, we had someone came home. I prayed a deaf and dumb spirit off of them and they could read. We did that one time. Because I know with authority that if you have a deaf and dumb spirit, that sucker, he's got to go. And the kid, I said, okay, we'll take the testimony, we'll pray over him. And Timmy looks at me and goes, am I dumb? I'm like, no, sweetie, that was just a prayer we were trying. You know, so again, you have to pay attention to what is going on with the children because you don't want them to shut down the pathways in their brain. A lot of my prayers for my kids were outside their door. I can remember Timmy having a hard day and I'd be outside his door, my hand on his door, and I'd just declare and release. But he couldn't hear me. But in the spirit realm, there's no distance. But I didn't want him to feel the mother heart of, you know, this kid's never going to make it. He's not going to survive. So we did that. Then we found a chiropractor, believe it or not, who does brain work. And I took him there when he was about 12 or 13, and she taught movement therapy and to fire up his frontal lobe. And so when you're told in school, sit down, Timmy, you know, oh, and that's, you know, you were moving around in class, and so at recess you have to sit down. That was the worst thing for him because he was born with a cord around his neck, so he didn't get all of the oxygen complete that he needed. I'm not trying to make this worse story than it is, but I mean, it caused problems in his brain. And actually, he needed to move to get the brain to work because his brain was trying to heal through movement, and they would make him sit out and stuff. And so she taught us some brain stuff that we did for a little while, and all of that helped. But at the end, he was still dyslexic. There was nothing she could do for that. And so we just were, okay, Lord, and of course, out of pocket, you know, no help from our medical. And he was 11th grade. He had a dream, and the Lord told him he was supposed to go to Oral Roberts University. And Timmy was the kid that the teachers wished wouldn't show up on the yearly testings because he would bring it down, you know, because he really couldn't read. He could retain anything. His brain is brilliant, but he just couldn't get it, you know, and you couldn't really understand a lot of what he wrote. We joked he should have been a doctor, you know, with his handwriting. Anyway, and so he came to us, and my first reaction internally was, he'll never make it. Number one, it's a private college we can't afford. And number two, he'll never test into it. There's just no possibility. And I didn't say it. And that's one of the best things for mom. You know, keep all the negative thoughts about their future and their character inside, you know, and then you can talk to yourself. And I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. If that's from God, you're going to need to test up and you're going to need a scholarship because, you know, we can't afford this. And I went away on one of my trips. I came back, and this kid, up until he was a junior in high school, could read maybe about 250 pages a semester, a quarter maybe. It was so hard to listen. As a mom, it was like, here, I'll read that to you. We would read to him until he was in 7th or 8th grade because it was so hard to him trying to figure it out. So I'd gone away and came back, and he goes, Mom, guess how many pages I read? And I'm like, I don't know. I said 2,300 something. I said, what happened? He said, I'm healed. And so someone in my husband's class said, do you have a son named Tim? Yes. Is he dyslexic? Yes. God wants to heal him? My husband's like, yes. They took an insert out of the bulletin and wrote, be healed, Tim, and laid hands on it like the cloth of Paul. And took it home, and my husband said, hey, Timmy, you know, this guy says you're going to be healed. Well, Tim says, I didn't believe it. I've been prayed for forever. I'm in 11th grade. He's doing something else. He puts it on his head, and he goes, okay, I'm healed. And God rebooted his brain.
Dawna.
In 11th grade. So my son graduated from ORU. He was the guest. He was the student speaker, and he has a master's in business.
If you have a dry after that story, I'm like, oh my gosh. Dang. I love what you said too though. So like he got prayed for a lot. How did you guys manage his heart when he like didn't, like before the healing and like all that, like what did that look like? Because that's such a hard, my daughter just got diagnosed, I'm gonna cry now, with type 1 diabetes last February, and it's been like an interesting journey of like when you have a child with a chronic thing in this environment, how do you maintain like hope and faith for it, but then protecting their heart, like as the parent, how did you navigate that?
That's so good. First, you navigate your own heart because they know what's going on in your heart, and you keep hope alive. I mean, I know that hope was the hardest thing for me in my own world, my own life, but as a mom, I mean, like, you would die for those kids. I mean, you're like, so it was easier to keep hope for him than it would be even for my own world. It's just like, well, every testimony I would just say, okay, thank you, God. And even sometimes the testimonies start to hurt your heart because they're like, okay, God, well, you can do it, but you're not doing it. So then you have to deal with your heart, and it's like, okay, so you healed somebody else's diabetes, but my kid still has this. Okay, but it's not because you don't love me, and you're changing, you're sozoing yourself internally as you go before you speak it out. And we would allow prayer, like we would, obviously, prayer, but only one time did we ever let them pray a deaf and dumb spirit off of him, because if he had a deaf and dumb spirit, which could have been it, he would have been fine. He didn't have a deaf and dumb spirit. He had a physical condition that needed physical healing. And so I think we need to look at that. We need to do everything we can. And I think sometimes we have an expectation of what God should do, and we can't let that expectation rob the expectancy. Mm-hmm. And so I hoped that God would just heal him. And had not kept expectancy and hope alive, I would have missed the colored glasses because they were $400 and we didn't really have $400. But okay, Bethel was helping us, learning that. I said, okay, let's try that. Okay, and it worked. And then this chiropractor, I'm like, what's a chiropractor going to do? Well, she's got a brain. She did stuff with brains. Well, let's try that. So it's not blocking the only way. Mm-hmm. And so I think for your daughter, it's like, okay, you're going to go after it in prayer, but it's not just the only way. Maybe God will bring another way to help get to that place of the next step.
That's good. That's really good. I know it's so hard to not get trapped in the dualistic. It's either miracle or natural, medical science. But the idea of I can use both, and it's a journey. That's really good.
Mm-hmm. So good. And talking about how we're raising our kids with these tensions that we're holding, how do we raise kids that are aware of the spiritual atmosphere that we're in, but maybe not over the top or over spiritualizing everything for them, but helping them to kind of live in this natural world with a supernatural awareness? How do we do that with our young ones?
Yeah, that's good, because I raised my kids very aware of the spirit realm. I was that mom. So my son Corey, years and years later, did a stand-up comic routine on what it was like to grow up with a deliverance mom.
I saw that. Yeah. It was hilarious.
Yeah, because he would be like, I would call them, from work, and I'd say, they're in high school now, and I'd be like, okay, so did you get your homework done? Yeah. What about page 82? Mom, how did you know that?
Yes.
And then it'd be like, where are you sitting near the computer? What are you tempted to look at? Mom, how do you know that? Well, so I was that mom.
I'm loving this right now.
I was that mom. But I also was careful to use their language.
Yeah.
So, I remember when Timmy's in high school and he says, Mom, you know how you're always catching us when we're about to struggle? I'm like, yes. He said, and you say it's because you know the atmosphere. So if I feel sexual sin coming at me, I know my kids are going to feel it. Now, it's going to come to their appropriate age behavior, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't want to freak them out, but I want to cover that. And so I just invite conversation with the kids. How are you doing? What's going on? As they get older and older, different levels of accountability. And Timmy says, Mom, how you always tell us, how about you tell us in advance? And then we can gear up. And so after that, he gave me permission at that point. So, bless you. And so I was able to, as he was in high school, I would have something come assault me, and it would sexually assault, like in your dreams or something. You're like, okay, it's a broadcast going on. I would walk by his door, I'd knock on his door, and I'd say, gear up. Wow. And he'd be like, thanks, Mom.
Wow.
So, as they get older, I know that one of the things you wanted me to look at was how do we use the sozo tools? How do we do the atmosphere stuff with our kids? Age appropriate. So one of the best sozo tools is not really a tool, but it's found in Matthew, and it's forgiveness. And so for kids, it's like, in the sozo ministry, hatred and bitterness, that's a door, right? But for kids, it's like, what hurt your heart? You know, and your kids come home and there's something wrong. You say, hey, is your heart hurting? You know, what hurt your heart? Yeah, Johnny said this or that to me. Because if you ask them what's wrong, they'll say, I don't know. But if you say, hey, is your heart doing okay? Someone hurt your heart? Yeah, Johnny said this about me. Oh, I'm so sorry. How about we forgive Johnny for that? Because I bet he didn't really mean it that way. Wow. And so we just closed the door. And one of my stories in the Sozo book, my son Corey has written all my books with me, and one of the stories is about him and something that happened, could have been horribly traumatic for him by a comment that was said. And he says to me, I don't remember that story. I'm like, that's because we closed the door back then. He didn't carry it into adulthood.
And he closed the door by forgiving.
Forgiveness. Yeah, and then they're kids, you know, and they're like, okay, I'm fine. You know, and they're off and running around, and, you know, you think your heart needs to forgive then.
I too need to use those tools.
Yeah. He's like, well, I forgive Johnny too, little bully, you know.
Is that Johnny when you're doing pickup? You're like, I see you, Johnny.
Yeah, I see you.
Wait, I haven't closed the door, clearly.
Yeah, but then, you know, and he didn't grow up with the pain of that. And, you know, we did that a lot. Now, children are different. So my oldest son was like, can we do that Sozo thing you do? Sure. My younger one, you had to trick into it. You know, so Timmy, again, my youngest, he was set in the car and he's in the back and I think he's in a car seat, so he's in a booster seat, so he's under 5th grade, maybe 3rd grade or something. Sure. And he's like, ugh! And he gets in and he's mad at his teacher because he got a bad grade and it's always everyone else's fault, you know. And the teacher didn't teach me well. And I said, well, you know, Tim, we need to forgive your teacher. Oh, Mom, I'm not going to do that. He's so smart. He says, Mom, how was your day? I said, no, I had a hard day. You know, my boss yelled at me. It was crazy. My boss never yells at me. My boss yelled at me. And he goes, well, Mom, this is what you do. I forgive my boss. And so he walked me through forgiving, right? And then it left. I mean, it felt all better. And then I moved down the rearview mirror and I said, your turn. He's like, oh, you got me. So then I walked him through forgiveness. So your children are different, you know. You don't bully your kids into forgiveness, but you give them the opportunity. You know, if you want to, I'm here. I can help walk you through it.
I like the idea too, what you were like, demystifying the Sozo and actually how forgiveness, like that's such an easy, like, way to start with the kids too, and how much of a basic step it really, under all the language. I think sometimes I can get caught up in the like Christianese of the Sozoing, and I almost, if I'm honest, I realized as you're talking, I realized that I thought that was part of the magic, but of the power. Yeah. That's a better choice of words. The power of the Sozo was like using the words, but I'm like, oh, that's totally formula, not relationship. And when you actually simplify it to the forgiveness and closing doors, I'm like, oh, I could do that. And then the idea that you like your kids' awareness increased because you laid the foundation early and you made it simple, so that like by the time they could handle the like spiritual authority in high school because you had been walking them through it and gradually. That's brilliant. That's really
baby
good.
steps in the spirit realm. What you were asking, you know, you need to use language appropriate for them in the spirit realm. So one of the things I like is to think about, let's get a buy-in from the family. Yes. Let's sit down and say, you know, it's funny. I've heard someone say that everyone in our family has a voice, but they don't all get to vote. You know, it's like, so you have a voice, I want to hear your voice, but you don't get to vote. You know, it's like,
because we'd have mac and cheese every night if you got to vote.
If you vote, but you can tell me, I really love your mac and cheese, Mom, and that's my favorite. You know, so you know, I would sit around with, I would now, I didn't then because we were learning. It's like, this is how it's going to be. But I would just invite the kids. What do you want in the home? Do you want to come home to a happy home, or do you want to come home to a grumpy home? You know, do you want to come home to, we're for you and we're cheering you on, or do you want to come home to, you know, the belt every day? You know, kind of give them age appropriate. You know, what do you think? Well, I want to be happy and I want to do that. Okay, well, let's use that word and put it in a word. What does happy look like to a parent in this place? So that when the children come home, they start holding you accountable as well. Or their brother comes home and they're like, hey, you're grumpy. Go back, grumpy. You go out and you come back. You don't get to come through the door. Wow. You know, and so the kids will hold us accountable when we agree on, you know, what the atmosphere should be. And you don't have to even use the word atmosphere. You know, because well, you know, in 1st grade, they do the situation in 1st grade where they're like, you know, this is the rules of the room. So what are the rules of the home? Well, peace, kindness, we're for you. We're not against you. You know, the whole world can be against you, but not here. We are for one another. So
So good.
How do you break apart the spiritual atmosphere that maybe they're carrying versus them? So like the grumpy doesn't get to come in, but like my daughter would be like, so you don't mean I don't get to come in? You don't want me in this? She's a little dramatic.
Yeah.
This family, and then she'd probably camp on this stuff. So how do you like recognize like, hey, this, you don't have to own this. This is a part of you. Like, how do you help them connect those dots?
Yeah, it's like you really train your kids to understand what their normal is. You know, if their normal is happy, then grumpy is not them. You know, and grumpy could be an atmosphere, or it could be something hurt your heart. So let's figure this out. I know so many children, they'll pick up on the playground what is going on, and they come home with a different personality than they went to school with. And you're like, okay, this is not you, and it's not a demon. It's just that you're picking up what other people are projecting, or, you know, that's not the word I would use, but, you know, was your friend sad today? Yeah, my friend was so sad. Oh, you know what? We can bless them, we can pray for them, but we don't have to carry their sadness. We're just going to take that to Jesus. Let Jesus deal with it.
I like those words, like giving it back almost. Like, here you go, Lucy, we'll let you have that. No, but
yeah, really.
That is so good.
And some children are very spiritually aware.
I think, yes. And I think we can see it more in some kids than others.
Right. And so those you have a little bit more conversation with. It's like, what are you feeling? What are you sensing? And start training them. I mean, you need to if they're sensitive. And sometimes kids get almost terrorized, like at night. Sometimes they'll be like the demonic realm starts to harass them.
Yes.
The best thing to do is let's find out where Jesus is. You know, because if the demons are real, Jesus is real. Right? And, you know, I don't like to hear that kids are harassed at night. So before they go to bed, now let's find Jesus in the room. Where's Jesus right now in the room? Jesus, are you going to be here tonight? Are you going to protect us? What do you want us to know? Have dialogue with Jesus, with the kids. And that's what we call presenting Jesus in Sozo.
That's one of the things we talked about asking you, because I think both of us, and I think there's probably not a mom out there that hasn't, in the night, been met with things that seem to be harassing our kids. And I just even have this picture of what you said when you're praying at Timmy's door with your hands on the door. We've all been there, but I think sometimes my tools come up short, and I'm sort of like, I don't know where to go from here, and I need more tools as a mom, and working with my son in particular is very spiritually sensitive. And then I can feel almost like I end up fighting him, because he can start to partner with it in his thoughts and in his words. And then I'm almost contradicting him, but it's not really him. Right. He's being harassed.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to just...
Yeah, well, finding their normal and letting them find their normal. Yeah. You know, what is your normal? And then, again, you know, I used it as examples on me. So I say, you know what I learned? You know, Mommy learned this. You know, I learned that, you know, sometimes I respond in ways that aren't my normal. And, you know, God was telling me that's not me. So I'm just thinking, let's find, maybe is there a way to find our normal? How did God create us to be? And then when we act outside of that, we know it's not us. We're being influenced by what's coming at us.
Right.
It's very helpful for kids.
That's really
Use their
good.
language, but don't. I overdid it because I was that mom. But
Dawna, I am too.
good.
And I need to get a little more. Like on the other end, I'm like, okay, I can use these words. What are some tools, like prayers? I like what you said about, like, you know, you prayed things once or twice with your son because then you believe in the authority. So like at night, if our kids are getting harassed or things haven't changed, what do you do differently? Or how do you not keep praying the same, like, like, oh, it didn't work the first time, maybe it'll work. What do you do differently?
Do I do?
Yeah.
Hell no.
Quite literally.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, quite literally. Mama Bear comes out. You know, it's like you get off.
I felt that actually.
Yeah,
I was like,
you get off my. I know that's irreverent, but I meant literally. Hell.
Yes.
No. It's like, get off my kid. You leave him alone. It's like you know, there are things that your kids are going to fight for that maybe you didn't win until you were an adult, and it's like, no, my kids aren't going to fight this.
I felt that.
Yeah,
I feel it.
I
do.
Feel it. It's
I
like,
do too.
Mama Bear. You know, we're Mama Bears. I mean, we come out, man, and it's like, you get off my kid and you leave them alone. And, you know, that prayer didn't work, quote unquote, with Timmy's learning disabilities, but it worked to keep him not feeling stupid.
Yes.
There was so much that and because we declared those things, God brought open brought things out of the blue. I mean, we didn't know about colored glasses. We didn't know about this lady that could help chiropractically. We didn't know any of this stuff. And our ability to stand at that door and say, get off my kid, without my kid hearing it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, because then they think, oh, there's something wrong with me. Mom's fighting me.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you don't get to harass my kid, and I take authority over you.
Yeah.
Because we have authority over this.
Yes. And they've been placed under our care. Therefore,
Yeah.
we can fight like that.
Absolutely. And it's like, yeah, I see you. Get off. You know, it's when you did that. So I see you. You get off my kids. And, you know, embarrassing my kids is part of what I do. But my boys both made it to their wedding bed pure. And so did their wives. And man, it was not an easy fight for them. There was, you know, this world is not easily, there's so much distraction out there sexually, and we, all of us, we just fought for them and with them, and, you know, and that, but understanding the spirit realm helped them so much as they got older to realize, oh, these are not my thoughts. And these, and I have thoughts, and I have emotions, and I have a physical desire, but I'm able to deal with that.
And even on a practical level, having a conversation like with your mom and your dad being involved. Like, this isn't, hey, a one-time talk, we don't have sex before marriage, good luck. You know, you're good with that. Like, actually talking about daily their struggles or things in the atmosphere. I'm like, oh, that the accountability and the normalness, and that even too, like, hearing grown men talk about like their pornography problem, most often they don't know what's going on inside of them that triggers that. So having your sons from such a young age being self-aware so they never get close to that cliff is just brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm not saying they never struggled.
Totally.
You know, that's part of being a young man, but they made it. Yeah, and we're so proud of them. I'm proud of their wives as well, you know. So it is not common in our world today, you know, and you know, you can get teased about it. Well, what's wrong with you? You're not having sex, you know. Like my older son was like, well, maybe you're gay, you don't have a girlfriend. He's like, Mom, am I gay? And I'm like, you're not gay. My husband was like, well, when you see a naked man, what do you think? He says, oh my gosh, nothing, so you're not gay. I mean, we just get real practical, you know, and
cool. Open dialogue. I like that a lot.
So important.
You mentioned kind of this environment that we're in right now, all the spiritual things happening. And you did just recently, your latest book addresses this, which was written earlier. Can you tell us a little bit?
Yeah, it's really fun.
That?
So the newest book is Warring with Wisdom. We have all my other books over here. Shifting Atmospheres is kind of what we were talking about before with the atmospheres. But Warring with Wisdom, it does talk a little bit about that we have flesh issues, we have soul issues, and we have a spiritual realm that we're battling. And that to win these battles, you need to kind of distinguish, is it my flesh I'm battling, is it my soul issue, or is it a spirit realm? Because you have different weapons for different battles that we're in. And I had a sozo just the other day that I would love to share with you guys.
Please.
Is that fine? Okay.
Yes.
Because of what's going on with atmospheres and everything.
Yeah.
You know, Proverbs 22:6 tells us, you know, that's the famous one, that if you train a child up in the way he will go. One of the verses says, if he departs, he will return. Some of the other translations are, he will not depart from it.
Right.
Well, you grow up, what's your normal? Okay. Well, if your normal in your home is chaos, as an adult, you will recreate chaos in your home because it's your normal. Right? And I mean, obviously, when Christ comes in, he redeems stuff. But if you don't know that and you don't know to give that to him, you are recreating it. So I had a woman come in for a sozo, and we just pegged, you know, there's something about chaos going on. And she's like, absolutely. In my home, I'm angry a lot. I'm frustrated all the time. And I said, okay, well, let's break this off. It was probably generational, yes. So, well, we need to create a new normal internally for you. So we break off chaos. Of course, you forgive. It's always one of the best ways to start. She handed God chaos. And 2 days later, she emailed me and she said, I can't tell you how different I am. And she said, my daughter, we were getting ready for school. And it's the same, you know, chaos, getting rid of the chaos here doesn't change your circumstances. It changes how you view and respond to your circumstances. So she's like, okay, we're running late like always. My daughter turns to me and says, Mommy, why aren't you angry right now? And she said, I realize I'm not stirring up chaos to be part of my normal, to feel normal. And so it's important that we, parents, we get rid of our ungodly normals, because we are giving our children those normals. Right? And so if our normal is peace, and one of the things she said is, as we were walking through this, before she gave up chaos, she said, well, my dad was very peaceful and you could feel his peace. She said, but he was a little passive aggressive. So she learned that peace was passive aggressive. And she was powerful, so she's not going to grab that, right? You're looking at me like, oh no.
And I'm ready to break chaos.
Yeah.
Can you stay afterwards? I'm like, does my peace feel like that?
Yeah, and so we were so funny because I thought, oh, I wonder, and I'd never seen this before, but when the disciples are, the boat's going crazy, and we know about Jesus standing up, peace be still, but Jesus is asleep on the boat, and what do they say to him? Do you not care that we're going to die? And I've always thought they're just thinking, oh, he's just resting, but maybe they thought, hey, dude, you're at peace, but we're not. This is not helping. And it's kind of like that passive. You're okay internally, but it's not helping us. And he gets up and he says, what? Peace, be still. And there is a power in peace that she hadn't seen because her dad never took that role in power. And so she had said, no, peace, no, that's passive. It's like, no, peace is powerful. And if we can, it is what our home is known for. People come into our home and they're like, it just feels peaceful. So
good.
That's so good.
That shift of peace being powerful. I'm like, oh, I had associated with passiveness too. I did not realize that. That's good.
And sometimes it's like, well, you're okay, And I thought that was so funny. I thought, I bet the disciples were like, Jesus, this is working for you, but it's not working for us. And then his internal peace, was, Bill would say, his internal peace was greater than the external. Well, that's what we do in shifting atmospheres. That's what we do in our home. Yeah. So the world can be going to hell in a handbasket, as they say, or the world can be doing amazing, but in our home, this is a protected place of peace. This is a protected place where, my boys would wrestle and they would fight and they would squabble, and I honestly would have rage at times, but all in all, that was outside the normal of peace. Yeah.
And then as moms, what are some practical, this is how we create this environment in our home, is this powerful peace. That's what we reside in, and even the chaos doesn't get to play its game here in our home. And I think we're the atmosphere setters in our homes.
Totally.
We decide what it's going to feel like in our home.
Totally. And at least until Dad gets home.
Yeah.
Right? And then Dad brings his atmosphere. Right?
Yes.
And a lot of times Dad brings the fun. But if Dad's abusive, then there is a different situation there where your peace needs to overcome that area there. But I used to get so frustrated because I would be correcting my kids all day long peacefully, and the husband would come home and play with them. And I'm like, I just got them ready for bed, and they're all excited, and they love their dad because he was the one that played. And I'm like, man, I worked with them all day long. Yeah. Yep. So really, honestly, for me, it's getting healed inside as a mom. Get healed inside, because when you're at peace inside, it will come outside. And I can remember trying to be peaceful inside and praying and being in my prayer closet and then coming out and screaming at my kids.
Oh, Dawna.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? But what I found is my background, and rage was my tool, because it was what I knew as power. And I talk about this in Overcoming Fear, are false power tools. So I learned that
Overcoming Fear,
Overcoming
the new
Fear
app that you have as well?
No,
Is that,
yeah. Well, I do have a new app, Shifting
Okay.
Atmospheres iPhone app.
Oh, great. Okay.
And that's
but Overcoming
with fears.
Fear is the book. Okay.
Overcoming Fear is a book, yeah. And so I talk about how I would be okay, and then I would just erupt with this rage, and I would repent, I would hand God my rage, and it usually revolved around Tim. Yeah. And I would go out and say, God, I'm so sorry. I could feel rage come on me, so I knew it was demonic. But I also partnered with it because it was the only thing that would make him stop. Sometimes it was the only thing. And and I go, okay, I'm so sorry, Lord. And when Corey was about 15, so Timmy's now about 12, 11, the Lord was like, you keep partnering with rage. You keep picking it up, putting it back on because you think that's your power. He says, but what you don't understand is underneath that is a catastrophic spirit. And my family line had this catastrophic spirit that was like, we'll never make it through, it'll never happen. And so when I broke agreement with the catastrophic spirit, I didn't need rage anymore.
Wow.
So a lot of times we are battling this spirit that is ungodly, yes, and embarrassing, yes, but
Yes.
there's something else underneath that we need to get rid of. And so part of what I talk about in the new Warring with Wisdom is I talk about your flesh versus your soul. Now, if it was my flesh, I would just run around and be angry all the time with my kids, but I wasn't always angry all the time. And then there's soul wounds, which actually are how you respond from something that's happening. So it's not something I want to do. My flesh just wants to do this. Or like for situations I teach, when I teach the men's group, it's like, do you need to just view pornography? Then it's spiritual and it's your flesh. And you need to knock it off. You need to, you can stand. He tells you that. It's hard, but you can stand. But if you're doing fine in the situation and someone does something and it hurts your heart, like I say for men, if you're doing great with pornography, but you kind of nestle up to your wife at night, and she's like, oh, honey, I have a headache. And you go, okay, well, I'm going to go view pornography. That is a soul wound issue. And you have to heal the rejection inside, or you will keep responding to that. And so I had to go to that place in the soul wound of my family realm where we believed nothing was ever going to work out. It was that catastrophic spirit. And once that was healed, I didn't need rage, even though Timmy didn't change.
Wow. And what would you say, like, that was your power thing that you would take on to feel powerful?
Yeah.
Was that replaced with something different?
Yeah, I mean, just peace. I mean, it was crazy. It's just, I just didn't need to rage anymore. I mean, and you feel different when you get when spiritual stuff gets closed, doors gets closed, you feel different. Yeah. And you just are a different person, and you don't need it. I think the issue for me was I was feeling disempowered because of the lie in the spirit realm that, oh my gosh, this is, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And so it was so far out here, I couldn't rationalize that, so, he's going to get he's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. Oh, well, he's going to learn from getting hurt. Now, not horribly hurt, but,
Totally.
I can remember one time, he learned about fulcrums, and he learned about how if you go further back, you get more swing. And so he decided, wow, and if you go further out, you get more of this. So he put, a swing here, and he put the trunk of the tree is here, and the branches are here, and he puts one rope here and one rope here, and he starts to go back, and he wants to swing into the trunk of the tree because, wow, look at, and I'm thinking, there's a trunk of the tree right there. You're going to hit the tree, right? And I'm like, dude, no.
Okay.
And my husband says, hey, he says, it's a cheap lesson. I'm like, it's not a cheap lesson. He's going to hit himself. It's a cheap lesson. He's doing it at 10. He's not doing it at 50. Like, oh, that's a cheap lesson. That's good to know. What cheap lessons are your kids going to learn? Because I don't want my kids to have to hurt. But you know what? Sometimes that's a really good lesson.
Yeah. And it costs less at 10 than it does 50.
It costs less.
When you have a marriage involved and children. It's so true.
Yeah, I love that. And my husband would say that over and over and over to me, and it didn't sink in until I broke off the catastrophic spirit. And then it was like, oh, that's right. It's a cheap lesson.
You could believe it then. Like
I
you
could
had the
believe
peace.
it, yeah.
It didn't trigger your powerlessness. Like I can't let him learn that way. It makes me feel.
And and there are some amazing, great teachers out there that teach on parenting skills. Danny Silk is awesome. Some of the way they teach on parenting skills didn't work for Tim.
Yeah.
And they didn't work because I wouldn't let Tim fail as far as he would allow himself to fail. And I would be told, let him fail 5th grade. I'm like, I'm not letting my son fail 5th grade because he already feels stupid. So there's more to it than just the one formula, and every kid is different. I remember Timmy would get in trouble all the time. They loved the teachers loved him. It would always be,
He sounds like a lot of
Timmy.
fun.
Yeah, we love Timmy, but that was always where it started. Okay, right. And Corey never did anything wrong. And so Timmy would get in trouble at school, and Corey did something wrong. And he got suspended. Now, he didn't really do it wrong. It was misinterpreted, but he got suspended. And right in front of Timmy, I high-fived Corey. I said, give me a high five, and high-fived him. And he's like, well, Mom, what are you doing? I get in trouble. I said, just because he never acts up. He had to step past fear to not be the perfect kid. Way to go, Corey. And Timmy's like, and I said, yeah, no, I'm not going to high-five you.
How do you talk to your kids about that? Like in the fair, my daughter is 7 and just getting stuck in the fair, and I'm like noticing that they are different. I'm like, oh, I'll be, I don't know, like justice isn't equal. Like they want it to be.
Yeah.
1 + 1 is 2 for
Right.
everybody.
Yeah. Well, but just maybe train them, fairness changes. Fairness to you is different to fairness to your sibling. So, I am being fair, but I'm helping the uniqueness of who you are in the fairness. That's what's so hard with laws, right? Laws are black and white. And then lawyers come in and they change it, make it gray, do whatever they can. But basically, I've been in a court when I was working as a bookkeeper for someone, and it was completely not fair what happened. But the law said if you don't have a signed contract, they don't have to pay. So we take this lady to small claims court, and every time he'd try to get it signed, she'd be gone. She'd leave a note on the door, come on in, yes, but she did not sign the contract. And when she wouldn't pay us, and it was like $5,000 20 years ago, and the judge was like to the lady, "So you don't like it?" "No, he did a great job." "No, he was awesome. He's a great man. So why aren't you willing to pay him?" "I didn't sign the contract."
Wow.
And he says, "You're right. She didn't sign the contract." She purposely would not sign, but it didn't matter. We had all the come on ins, do everything.
Wow.
So the law is not fair.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was that judge, I would have said, "Well, here's what the law says, but you have to pay." But he couldn't do that. So we do need to adjust how I can remember growing up, my dad just had to look at me and I would cry. I go, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't really need a SWAT. And Timmy needed a SWAT.
I have those kids.
Totally, me too.
I can remember Timmy one time, if I could have won so much money on the Funniest Home Videos. Timmy's in diapers, so that's telling you something. And he's just so strong-willed. Oh my gosh, this kid was so strong-willed. And I cleaned everything up because I'm teaching someone in the other room, homeschooling other kids, and I say, now, be careful, play quietly. I need to take care of this. And it was a little stressful with Timmy because you never knew what he was going to be up to. And I hear this crash, bam, whoosh, and I come in and he had all these stand-up places where you put toys,
Okay.
and which is not honestly really good if you don't have the really heavy toys on the bottom, right? And so and all the toys he's laying down, and all the toys are around him, and I'm like, oh, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, that kid, he did it again, and I start to walk in, I'm like, Timothy James DeSilva, and I had this moment, and I thought, oh, maybe it's an accident. Maybe he just stood up, because he's a toddler, and fell over. I said, Timmy, and this is so funny as a parent, you ask some of the stupid questions to your kids. Did you do that on purpose, or was it an accident? Because by now I'd read Dr. Dobson's How to Parent the Strong-Willed Child, right?
Oh, yes.
And it's only if it's on purpose. So I'm thinking, okay. And Timmy looks at me, looks at the toys, looks at me. And now I'm like, you do not ignore the mom. I'm like, and crazy mom's about to pop out. This is about rage mom about to happen.
Oh.
And I start getting over him, and I'm puffing up, and he looks at me, he goes, Mommy, which one doesn't get the SWAT? And I just started cracking up. I thought, he knows there's a right answer.
Oh.
I can get a SWAT or not get a SWAT. I'm not sure which.
He's cracking the code.
We need the Holy Spirit to know all these situational things, what to do, how to navigate. Will you pray for us, Dawna?
Absolutely, yeah.
Pray for us.
From a mom who's made it through,
Yes.
I just want to say, and of course I put
Yes.
hands, I just lay hands on, I just declare it's going to be okay. It's
Amen.
going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And ask God about the call on your children's life. Declare it over them. Declare it. Put your hands on the bedroom at night if you need to. Do what you need to do to keep your faith up in the middle of what's going on with your kids, and take authority over, rebellion, and take authority over the atmospheres in your home. I quietly play Christian music, not out loud and glaring, but quietly play the music. It helps with the atmosphere. And I just declare, it's like every gray hair, and I do have gray hairs in here, it's going to be okay. I just release the peace of God, the power of peace into your home and into your heart. It's going to be okay.
Thank you so much.
Amen.
Thank you for breaking it down to these nuggets that we can apply to potty training years. It just feels way taking the concepts that we know as adults to
Yes.
apply to our kids. I'm like, I can do that. So thank you so much for being with us.
I'm planning on leading my kids and forgiving some people today. And I think I'm going to
Including
start with
Mom.
me.
It's true. They're great. You give them a little bit of like, you can hold me accountable. They're like, okay. Like my daughter will be like, are you supposed to have that cupcake? I'm like, no, you're right. So now I'll do it with spiritual stuff too.
Yeah.
So Thank you
good.
again. Yeah.
Thank
You're welcome. It was great to be here.